everyone, and welcome to tonight's Memory Keeper Story Hour. My name is Millie Jasper, and I'm the Executive Director of the Holocaust and Human Rights Education Center. We're joined by immediate past Chairman David Alpert and board people. I hope I caught everyone coming on. Barbara Tartell, Zipporah Janowski, Karen Myers, Leah Sills, Joan Poulin, Francis Ginsberg, Yonat Asayag, as well as advisory board members Kathy Zaltis, Melissa Cates, Audrey Reich, and Karen Stafford. We're delighted to welcome Leah Rosenfeld Sills to the Memory Keeper Story Hour. Thank you, Leah, for your dedication to Holocaust awareness. Call Me Stefan is the center's newest exhibit, and we are grateful that you are sharing the story with us this evening. To our guests, we are honored that you have chosen to spend tonight with us. Please take a moment to acknowledge the significance of coming together to acknowledge those who came before us. By listening, we honor their memory and reaffirm our commitment to learning from the past. This gathering is not just an opportunity to listen, but also to connect with one another and remember the importance of preserving history through personal narratives. Thank you all for being a part of our community tonight. And Leah, thank you again for sharing your family story with us. We're very happy to have Kathy Zaltis and Sam Rosemarin with us this evening. They will coordinate the program with me. As you will see, and as many of you already know, this program runs smoothly with their caring and very capable hands. The Holocaust and Human Rights is a 501c3 not-for-profit organization, and I will put our website in the chat. A little housekeeping, as I mentioned earlier, your microphones are muted, and we request that you stay muted so that we can keep background noise to a minimum. The format for tonight is as follows. I'm going to introduce Sam Rosemarin to you, and he in turn will introduce Leah. Before I introduce you, Sam, Leah is going to play a moment of music. After her presentation, Kathy will come on to conduct the Q&A. We will close the program at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time for those of you who are listening from a different time zone. So please join me in welcoming Leah tonight.
Thank you. Thank you, Millie, Executive Director Extraordinaire. Thank you to Sam and Kathy for the opportunity to share my dad's story tonight. Thank you to the nonprofit team at HHREC, and hello to my fellow board members. Hello to my family, friends, and colleagues, people from all over the world and my world, gathering, not colliding here tonight. We have California, Jamaica, Baltimore, Oregon, Montreal, Vermont, Massachusetts, and of course, Pine Lake. So you're about to hear one song. It's about a minute long, so this is when you should check your volume, and then Sam will do his introduction. Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. As you already know, I have the pleasure tonight of introducing Leah Sills. I share Millie and Kathy's appreciation for Leah's commitment to Holocaust remembrance. She is indeed a valued member of the HHREC community. Leah was born and raised in New Rochelle. She is deeply committed to her family and to her community. She is an activist in both roles. Leah and I recently spoke to students for Holocaust Remembrance Day. In the story I tell about my parents' survival, I say that I learned from listening to other survivors that the reason they survived was not just their own abilities, but because of the intervention of angels, sometimes Jewish and sometimes not, who risked their own lives and saved their humanity or preserved their humanity by saving, feeding, or otherwise protecting Jews. Leah will tell us about her father, Stefan Rosenberg, and his parents, Abraham and Eugenia Rosenfeld. Their survival required their own courage and determination, but she will also tell us about their angels. It is alternatingly a fascinating, heartwarming, and heartbreaking story. I'm anxious to hear it, Leah. Please share it with us.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Sam. So I hope that you checked your volume. I'm going to be sharing some videos. I'm also going to be sharing a lot of documents with you. So the larger the screen you are using, the better. I'd like for you to take note also that we're going to be looking at two different colored slides. I use blue slides with the students, that's 6th grade to around 11th or 12th grade. You'll see that the language is very simple, as are the images. The white slides have been added for tonight's presentation. They are dense, and there are a lot of them. So, sharing stories, in some cases tragedies and events from over 85 years ago, it's really, really tough. Many students in the districts where we present have little to no connection with the Holocaust. So how do we reach them? In the earlier days, I used to start with a conversation about 9/11, the news, the fear, the sounds all around us. Everyone on this call can remember details of that day almost to the minute and the weeks that followed. It was a group collective loss, and for those directly impacted, they live with that every day. But when I walk into a school building now, there are no longer students and even some faculty who were alive then. I needed to pivot my opening. So what did I do? I changed to, started talking about COVID. I look at a group of students and ask them, where were you 5 years ago? How did you feel? How were the parents and the grandparents around you reacting? Were they scared? Put yourself back in isolation. I apologize for doing that to them. But then I ask them to think about a group of kindergartners. Just imagine in 10 years sitting where they are now, and these group of little kids will have no idea what this current generation experienced through COVID. Does that mean that it did not happen? Does that mean that that feeling that they had does not matter? They went through it, and it cannot be erased. The loss and the pain of the Holocaust did not happen to them. However, through their shared COVID experience, they learned what it means to bear witness to something, an internal feeling, like a really strong sense of isolation that they had when their own lives changed 5 years ago. And now I'm going to share my story. It does not want to advance. Let's see. My slides don't want to advance. Millie, my slides don't want to advance for some reason. Hold on, everybody. My slides don't want to advance. Let's see what's happening.
Try stop sharing and restart sharing again. Sometimes helps.
Thank you. Yep, thank you. Oh, Eric. Eric, I love you. Okay. May I introduce you to Stefan, born March 7, 1934. Here are some photos of him with his mom and his dad. That's Eugenia, we called her Jenny, and Abraham, we called him Adash. And when I say to the kids, do you have any little brothers or sisters, or maybe a little cousin age 5 years old? Some of them raise their hands. The Rosenfeld story begins in the city of Łódź, Poland. In the top left-hand corner is a photograph of my grandfather Abraham, who was a velvet ribbon manufacturer. He was born in Kiev in 1899. He was a velvet ribbon manufacturer. Those are velvet ribbons that would go on the inside of a woman's blouse or at the bottom of a skirt. That's his business card on the bottom left. So every summer, my grandfather would go from Łódź, Poland, which is here. That's his family. That's Łódź, Poland right there. He would go from Łódź, Poland to the west to sell his velvet ribbons. He would go to Belgium, Germany, France, and over to England. That's a picture of the ribbon factory. I show this with the kids, to show them the size. That's a giant church in front of it. But I also tell them to take note of the Jewish population that's on top of the church building. So that number, 672,000, what I'll do with a group of students is I'll take where they are. So it would be Yonkers, Greenburgh, New Rochelle, Mount Vernon, White Plains, Rye, Mount Pleasant, Cortland, Ossining, Yonkers, Eastchester. That's about 680,000 people. And then if you only took the populations of Yonkers and Eastchester, imagine that is all Jewish people. So in the summer of 1939, my grandfather was starting to get very nervous about what he saw happening. And he said to my grandmother that he didn't want to go on his annual sales trip that summer. He was very worried about what he was seeing going on in Poland and the news that he saw coming out of Germany. And my grandmother, who you saw, said, "Of course you have to go. Don't worry. If anything happens to me, you will come home." And Abraham left her his trip to the west. September 1st, 1939, the war started, and my father said that the Germans walked into Poland and that both the Polish people and the ethnic Germans living there welcomed them with open arms. Łódź, his hometown, gave up without a shot being fired. In the next slide, you're going to hear in Stefan words what happens as his parents, Jenny and Abraham, are on the telephone September 1st, and the phone lines are cut.
In the lodge, and they were cut off as soon as it started. Now, I'm not sure exactly what time it was, but I think it was very early in the morning. The next thing that I remember was a little while after that, there was a pounding on our door at the apartment, and German soldiers came in, and they gave her a chance to put something in the suitcases, and we went to my grandparents' house. Sometime after, we went to Warsaw, and we took this ride of 70 miles in a hay cart pulled by one horse. Now, can you imagine riding 70 miles in a one-horsepower cart? We passed by a lot of villages and towns in flames, and I'm not sure at exactly how long that ride took. It was certainly not that rapid. One dawn, I was facing the rear of the cart, and I was up. I guess I was an insomniac even at that age, and I saw a speck in the sky, and the speck got larger and larger, and I awoke everyone, and we stopped the cart, and there was a field on the left side of the cart from my vantage point, and we all got into that field and lay down, and the German aircraft passed overhead. We survived that and went on to Warsaw, where the Nazis were bombing Warsaw constantly. And we spent a lot of time in the basement of an air raid shelter, as an air raid shelter, the basement of an apartment house, I meant. And I spent a lot of time there. I learned how to read there by candlelight. We went back to lunch, and in that time, my father...
So there you have my father, who has a very vivid memory, even as a 5-year-old traveling from Łódź into Warsaw. So they get back to Łódź, and it's not too long after that when there's a very loud pounding on the door. And this 5-year-old lived through that banging on the door. This was the apartment where Jenny and Stefan were forced to pack a suitcase as they fled to Stefan's grandparents' house, a house on Wilczanska 73. This is when I stop and I ask the students what they would take with them if someone banged on their door and told them they could take 2 suitcases. And this is what a group of 6th grade boys wrote. Here they moved in with my dad's grandparents, Chaya and Saul Jelin, Uncle Piotr, and a great aunt and uncle named Rudomin. This was the home where they ran their freight forwarding business. The family names Jelin Rudomin are on the gates, and that arrow at the bottom is where my father played trains with his uncle Piotr. They ran a freight forwarding business, which was, I like to call it, an early Amazon. Merchandise came in through those gates. There was a warehouse next to the courtyard, and trucks left from there. It was shortly thereafter, to make them more easily recognizable, the Nazis started forcing Jewish people to wear yellow stars. These are the stars that belonged to my grandma Jenny, worn on the front and the back. And I asked the kids that, why do you think they wore them on the front and the back? And they know now that so that the Germans could see them coming and the Germans could see the Jewish people going. Children under the age of 10 were not yet required to wear yellow stars. And these are the earliest examples of yellow stars. What you see in the museums are ones that were later mass produced.
3 months later, now November 1939, Stefan's father, Abraham, was still stuck in Belgium, not able to return home. He worked very hard to help his family escape Poland to get him. He asked the Bolivian diplomat working in Germany to give his family special travel papers called visas to leave Poland. But Stefan got very sick with appendicitis, and he and his mom had to wait. Finally, in January 1940, Stefan was healthy enough to travel, and the Bolivian diplomat reissued their transit visas. A woman who worked as a cook for the family, her name was Clara, helped Jenny and Stefan get to the train station. In an upcoming video, Stefan will tell you more about Clara. At the train station in Łódź, Jenny said goodbye to her parents. Jenny's mother began to cry and said, "I will never see you again." This confused Jenny, and she said, "Of course you will." Jenny could not even imagine that this goodbye would last forever. Now to the detail of the escape. Jenny, 29 years old, is about to board a train with her little son heading into enemy territory. She hides her yellow stars and her jewelry inside her clothes, and she boards the train with her 5-year-old son, Stefan. She tells him intensely, "Do not talk, pretend you cannot speak." To reach Belgium, they have traveled into Germany, and Stefan only speaks Polish. It's very hard for the 5-year-old to stay quiet, but Jenny knows their lives depend on his silence. When she was younger, Jenny attended German-speaking private schools, and she speaks perfect German. This skill is critical because on the train she talks and laughs with other passengers, so no one suspects her. Meanwhile, Stefan sits very still and very scared. The train pulls into Hamburg, Germany, and the Bolivian diplomat's wife and son meet them. The young mother and son stay one night. The next day, the diplomat's family helped them cross the border into Belgium. On January 20th, 1940, almost 6 months after the start of the war, Stefan and Jenny reunite with Abraham.
Almost 5.5 months later, thank you. It's a long time in a little boy's life. So here they are in Belgium, and this is where my grandfather first begins to try to find transit out of Europe. Here in this letter, he's trying to get to Palestine. It's dated March 15, 1940. But this is what happens. Invasion of the Low Countries, and they need to flee again. They decide to go into Paris, and while in Paris, they heard that they could have their visas maybe signed in Bordeaux, which is all the way, if you look on the map, all the way to the left along the coastline. So you may be wondering, how do we know all of this? Well, I have many, many binders of material, and you will see some of them later. Remember the 2 suitcases? Well, in those suitcases was a child's book of my father's. And in that book, my father, 5-year-old, was doodling. If you take a close look at what my father is doodling, so they eventually get to Bordeaux, and then from Bordeaux they go to Biarritz, and from Biarritz they cross through Spain and then into Portugal. By the time they reach Portugal, they have run out of money, and by some miracle, they're in Lisbon. My father remembers the ice cream. He remembers the big hills of Lisbon. They met a woman named Mrs. Cole, who was from Upper Montclair, New Jersey. Mrs. Cole was there on vacation with her granddaughters. Her husband was in the State Department and she was there. And not only did she offer my grandparents money, she also found them passage on a ship. And that's the Greek ship, the Nea Hellas, which is pictured there. My grandma tried to offer her jewelry that was sewn inside her clothing, and Mrs. Cole said, absolutely not. And as soon as you get to the United States, you can pay me back. So I try to tell the kids how far that they went, and this is how I show them. That was how far they traveled from Łódź to Lisbon. Well, they arrived in New Jersey, in Hoboken, New Jersey on July 12, 1940, out of money. You see that luggage tag with the date. My grandparents moved to Queens. That July, they arrived. That September, my father went to school in Elmhurst, Queens, first grade. The first day of school, the teacher brings little Stefan up to the front of the room and says, "Class, I'd like for you to meet Stefan, the refugee boy." Well, that was the last time that my father was ever called Stefan. He said, "No, never ever call me Stefan again." He learned English. He completely dropped Polish. And when the class sang "God Bless America," he began to weep because he did not know the words. And I just want to show you one quick thing here. There's my dad's report card, September 1940, Stefan Rosenfeld, PS 89 in Queens. My father went on to marry Linda Schoengold, and there's a photo of his parents. My parents have 4 kids. There's a picture of us back then and a picture of us now. So there's my dad. He's living a really nice suburban life. There's a picture of our family, a picture at a birthday party. And it's maybe about 10 years ago that my dad is sitting in the kitchen just having an ordinary breakfast. and the phone rings, and he picks up the phone, and a voice on the other end says, "Hello, is this Stefan Rosenfeld?" And my father said, "Who?" And he almost hung up the phone. He really almost hung up the phone. And thank goodness he didn't. And the man said, "No, no, no, don't hang up the phone. Is this Stefan Rosenfeld from Poland?" And my father said, "Yes." And he said, "Do you have your parents' passports?" And my father said, "Yes, I do. I do." He said, did your family come through Portugal?" And he said, "They did." And he said, "Please go upstairs and go and find your passports." So my father goes running upstairs, finds their Polish passports, and that's when he heard the name for the first time. Aristides de Souza Mendes. Souza who? Well, the researcher explained on the other end that my grandparents' names had been found in Portugal in a visa registry book, and he gave my dad an overview of the tragic life of Souza Mendes, the signature on the visa page found in his parents' passports. A man who defied his government and saved thousands of people, only to die a pauper, erased from the history books. Well, I heard that, and wouldn't you want to know who saved your dad or your little cousin or your brother? So I started to read about Souza Mendes. As his younger self, his wife and his first cousin. A big, beautiful family that was very musical, and because of its size was actually able to play multi-instrument orchestral pieces, 15 children in total. He had a dedicated life of service that came with a large estate in Portugal and a big, beautiful family. It was in the spring of 1940 that Souza Mendes and his family were stationed in Bordeaux, France. His twin brother was stationed in Warsaw, both lifelong diplomats. But also in spring of 1940, Salazar had made it clear through an edict that you will soon read about that no transit visas were to be given to Jews, and for a diplomat to act otherwise would equal terrible consequences. But as you can see, Salazar had a lot of supporters. In Portugal in those days, it was unthinkable for a diplomat to disobey clear-cut instructions and get away with it. Salazar had made that clear through this Circular 14, no undesirables. No transit visas were to be given to Jews, and for a diplomat to act otherwise would equal terrible consequences against him. But this was the scene in June of 1940. Refugees started flooding into Bordeaux, and it was in this crowd of people where Souza Mendes met Rabbi Kruger during his nightly rounds of places where refugees were gathering. He invited the rabbi to the consulate, and he listened to Rabbi Kruger tell the story of how his own family had escaped from Belgium at the start of the German invasion, and that they were now stranded just like these other refugees in the city. Souza Mendes invited the rabbi and his daughters into his home and offered them transit visas, and said that, but the rabbi said no, turned him down, and said that there was only one avenue of rescue, and that's to give all of us visas to Portugal. And it presented Souza Mendes with a moral challenge, because issuing visas to hundreds and even thousands was a violation that would not be ignored by Lisbon, unlike the small number of individual visas that he had issued earlier, like to my grandparents. In 1940, a piece of paper, a visa, was a diplomatic protective document, and it could spell the difference between life and death for a fleeing Jew. Some of the diplomats posted in other European capitals understood this well, and some listened to their conscience effort to save innocent lives, and in spite of the harsh immigration regulations that restricted them, much like Sugihara in Lithuania. But here was Souza Mendes's only weapon to save everyone was his signature. What was Sousa Mendez going to do? Here he had met this religious Jew who felt strongly enough to risk his own family. And Sousa Mendez was a devout Catholic with so many children and a lifelong Portuguese diplomat who followed directions. And this is what his nephew wrote as he approached Bordeaux. The situation was out of control. Sousa Mendez retreats to his room, ponders his faith and the fate of the refugees who have shown up on his doorstep, literally. And that's what he comes out of his room saying. And he starts stamping visas, thousands of visas. And here are a few of the faces of people who he saved. Even his own sons helped set up an assembly line, and they forged his name to sign visas. It's at this point when I'm with the students that I give them envelopes. I have a group of 100 students. I'll pass out 5 envelopes, and in the envelopes are photos of other visa recipients. So they'll open up their envelope and I'll say, who has Leon, Moed? And then I'll say, how old was Leon? And the child will call out the age of Leon. Who has Denise and Francoise? Who has one of the Frankfurt children? Well, the Portuguese government caught up with him and he was remanded back to Portugal, and he was severely punished for his heroic action. And that's what his family estate looked like. No one had saved the family home, and his children and grandchildren had already left the country. Shame, neglect, disrepair. He had been punished and basically erased from the history books. Look at that beautiful home, literally the roof caving in and birds flying around inside. But did he have any regrets? This is what he told Rabbi Kruger shortly before his death in April of 1954. I asked the 6th grade boys what they thought, was it worth it? And this is what they wrote. So I saw what had happened to him, and here I have this beautiful life in New Rochelle, a beautiful home, a beautiful family, and I decided to go with my father and travel back in time, and we decided to walk in the footsteps of these refugees, and we signed up on a trip hosted by the Sousa Mendez Foundation, and we walked in their footsteps of these refugees fleeing Bordeaux. It was called Journey on the Road to Freedom. We were interviewed by NPR. My dad got to see his parents' names written in the registry book in Lisbon. We connected with other visa recipients from our same visa date of May 24. So I think that seeing this trip really changed my father, who was 81 at the time, and I tried to set something to music about it.
Ach, si je pouvais être quelqu'un d'autre. Oh, if I could fly away like a dove. Laura, Pierrotti, Nervisch war weit. Oh, if I could be a child again. Oh, könnte ich fliegen wie Tauben dahin. I wish I was a bird landing on branches. Si seulement mes pas sauraient suivre mon art. Wenn ich nur jemand anders sein könnte. Oh, if only I could feel it. Laura, Pierrotti, Nervisch war weit. Wenn doch nur meine Schritte meiner Seele zu folgen wüssten. Ach, magla realitatsca ptica. O könnte ich mich wie der Fisch vom Bach ins Meer lassen. Keşke bir kuş olsam. Oh, if I could be somebody else. Lerinde.
And one more.
Könnte ich fliegen wie Tau, könnte ich fliegen wie Tau, könnte ich fliegen dahin, könnte ich fliegen dahin, wie Tauben dahin, weit hinweg vor dem Feind, weit hinweg.
By the time that we reached Lisbon and each family on the trip had given their testimonial, it was quite a lot for my father. And in the last day, my father was offered the opportunity to give his testimonial. And it was here in the synagogue in Lisbon that my father stood up in front of everybody and said, "Call me Stefan." I think he realized who was left behind so that he could survive. My father rediscovered his family on that trip, and that trip also changed me. We went on during that trip also to have some really joyful moments, like meeting the president of Portugal, who was a really, really wonderful, lovely, charming guy. Can I call the president a guy? Anyway, a very charming human being. And he also, as my friends know, the president loves to hug. And there was also some other joyful things that have happened since. Remember how the house looked in 2014? Well, I was able to see this happen. This is July of 2024. If you go to Portugal, you'll be able to see that beautiful museum with the renovated interior, beautiful exterior, with a cute little restaurant down the street. Some of our family's artifacts are now permanently housed in the museum. But my storytelling and the story of my father now wanting to be called Stefan has continued around the globe. So, you ready? I told you about the white slides. Here they come. There's a lot of them. I'm going to go pretty quickly through them. So the storytelling, like I said, continued around the globe. Here we go. The artifacts have been traveling. I was interviewed by AP News. So when I was trying to pick slides for tonight, when you have boxes and boxes and hundreds of artifacts and papers, where do you start? There were just too many to pick from, so here are some that I chose for you. It's my grandfather's report card. Remember, she took 2 boxes. I had two suitcases. Do I show you his report card, or do I show you his high school graduation picture? They kept everything. primary sources, hundreds of letters, 5 different languages, artifacts. That is real velvet ribbon that I have in a box here at my house. I travel with those coins. I get to show the students those coins. Some of the artifacts are really, really big. That's the steamer trunk that now lives in that museum in Lisbon. Some letters. But I need to come back to the story real quickly. And I'm going to have my father tell you a little bit about the sealing of the ghetto.
My mother hated to cook, and she had a cook who was German, whose name was Clara, and Clara had a cousin who happened to be a mid-level Nazi who helped us finally get out of Lodge by just making sure that that visa was okay, or the copies thereof. And we finally left the middle of January of 1940. So that means we spent 4 months, over 4 months under the Nazi occupation. And we were very fortunate to leave then, because 1 month after we left, the ghetto in Lodz was founded. And had we been sent there, I wouldn't be talking to you. I would be a statistic.
So I'm the one that's filling in the blanks for this story, and I travel also with the stars, and I've seen when I take them out, I've seen just people start to weep. We also have a collection of postcards from the ghetto. But as you go through this, and why Memory Keepers is so important is, and it's, as you can see, I'm still a work in progress, it's assembling a timeline. And when you have this much documentation, there's a lot to sort through. Passports, doctor's notes. Every moment of their escape is documented. A lot of detective work. You could see at the hotel on the left, the Hotel Regence, that someone ordered chocolate. I'm sure that was my father. And if you take a look at the hotel receipt from Biarritz on the right, there's an arrow there. What I discovered is that when you turn over the map, remember my grandparents are traveling with a little boy, and look what they drew. Do you see the FR for France, E for España, and P for Portugal? They actually drew him a little map. The timeline continues. Train stubs. So yes, these documents are absolutely overwhelming. I could spend an entire day showing them to people. But what I probably do best is to share the story. I share the sadness and the moments of light, because by following what Sousa Mendes knew was morally correct, this Catholic man rescued thousands of people who were nothing like him. So I started doing projects related, and as you could see, Sousa Mendes was finally elevated to the recognition that he so desperately deserved. And I started doing projects. And I started traveling, going to the Taft School. There's Call Me Stefan, that I'm going to talk more about in just a moment. And this is what I do whenever somebody will have me come visit their school or their community. So let's talk a little bit about the bottom left, called Candelabro. Candelabro, this is Candelabro, about Sousa Mendes.
Alice Hartung, Miriam, George Moon,
So that's Candelabro. And now I'd like to introduce you to my baby. Call Me Stefan. Call Me Stefan was the brainchild of the historian Claudio Niños. It has been touring throughout Portugal, and I love in these photographs, it tells the story of my father, weaved in with the story of Sousa Mendes. And in these 3 photos, you get to see how the different schools presented the video, this Call Me Stefan. But my favorite part is when you see it from above, and this is what the architects designed. And these are students interacting with it. I love seeing them bending down on the floor to actually read the panels at the bottom. The students also get to see the artifacts along with it. And my work is also continued. It's continued in New York State with this incredible, incredible news that came out through HHREC and Steve Goldberg. And now the Stefan story and the story of Sousa Mendes has been made available to over 2 million students in New York State. It is absolutely thrilling. It's at a website called Consider the Source. Maybe someone will put it into the chat box. But Francisco Sandoval, who is on the call, helped to develop it, and he also came up with these study questions. There's also a slide deck, so they'll be able to see the same photos that many of you are seeing. But I have to tell you, this research is emotionally exhausting, come with some real highs and some real lows. So if I can just start off with a low for now, I'd like to go back a little bit and talk about the people who did not get out. This is a photo of my father's uncle Piotr. My grandfather tried desperately to get his younger brother Piotr out of Poland, even sending him a visa from the Dominican Republic, but to no avail. Through my research, I discovered that Piotr survived the entire Lodz ghetto from February 1940 until the liquidation in 1944. Polish men who were still standing went directly through Auschwitz and directly into a slave labor camp in Hanover, Germany that was owned by the international company known as Continental Tire. The commander of Continental Tire there was a former soccer coach turned sadist. As you can see, Piotr died, slave number 53253, on November 15, 1944, of tuberculosis, but we know it's not tuberculosis. He was murdered. He was 36 years old. Do you remember the gates where the trucks came in and out from the Jelen-Rudomen home? That's how the trucks were used. But there are also moments of light, and I know I'm running a little bit short on time, so I'm going to go through these pretty quickly. The moments of light, including when I was able to find the grandson of the Bolivian consul general. He was the one who helped get them transit visas so they could board the train in Łódź and get into Hamburg, Germany. I found the grandson, and one of my sons was actually able to visit the grandson. So this was also learning this history made my immediate family much closer, and we decided that we wanted to go back to Łódź and to see where my father and my grandparents and Uncle Piotr and the Jelen-Rudomens were. So here we are in Łódź. Their house is still standing. With the J and the R on the gates. It was taken away from them. It was stolen. So we decided to go and pay homage the next day. This is the cemetery. And it was not such a lovely day when I went there with my family. But we still found the final resting place of Stefan's grandparents. I returned back to Łódź, back to the Jewish cemetery, and I had a matzeva installed on the left. And what we never knew was that the Jews of Hanover, Germany, where Uncle Piotr died, had actually had Piotr interred in a cemetery there in Hanover, Germany. And how lucky are we to be here. It's at this point in the presentation when I have those students who have those envelopes, hold their envelopes up in the air, because they see the number 10,000 and they still think that 10,000 is a big number. And I somehow have to get this number 10,000 into something that they can understand. So if there's 100 children in the room, I have 4 of them hold up their life-saving visa envelopes. And then I'll say, the 4 of you are the ones who are going to be able to leave today. The rest of you, I'm very sorry. What do you want us to know about all of you? So this is where I like to talk about, these are all humans who loved, and all humans that need to be remembered, their names, not numbers. I like to remember the happy days. My dad was a huge Mets fan. Of course, it's Mookie Wilson with him. And in September of 2019, my father, who loved to sing, got the joy of a lifetime.
Oh, my dears, your love is here to stay. Together you're going a long, long way. In time the Rockies may crumble, Gibraltar may tumble, they're only made of clay. Your love is here to stay.
He who saves a life saves a world. Moral courage is a trait to be encouraged. Refugees fleeing today are leaving behind families and abandoning where they call home, opening our hearts, being kind, being generous. When you save a life, you save what? A world. Those are my sweet sons. If only they were so cute and little like that, but now they're big. Now they're just big and cute. thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Leah. Leah, I can't tell you how passionate your presentation was, and we're all so amazed at all the research that you did and dedication to your father's story. Leah, I think you said that you wanted to introduce some people to us
Yes, thank you.
on gallery view.
I'm back on gallery view and I just unmuted myself. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. I'm sorry, I was really nervous, but I'm glad that everyone
you
made it
did
through. But I do have a few wonderful surprises on the phone, on the computer with us today. We happen to have, not only do we have some visa recipients, fellow visa recipients of Sousa Mendez transit visas, we also have some Sousa Mendez grandchildren. So what I would like now is if the Sousa Mendez grandchildren, if they know how to either send a reaction or somehow take themselves off of mute and say hello to us, and my visa recipient families, if you could also, if anyone has any questions about that part of the story, we would love to have you. It's a little bit of a surprise. You can, I'll put my email, or maybe Eric will put my email into the chat box. You can ask me questions too in the chat box. And but I'd like to talk. Yes, so Kathy.
Questions, so that'll help you out, I
Yeah,
think.
thank you.
Yeah, no worries. So, do you see their names, Leah,
Yeah,
on?
I see Monique. Monique can take her name, or I think
Hello,
Gaia.
Monique.
Monique is there. She could take herself off of mute. Gaia is there.
Hello, Gaia.
Hi.
Gaia is there. I should have Sheila should be there, and I think we have Gigi. Gigi, are you here?
Hi.
Oh, and there's Sheila. Okay. All right. So Sheila and Gigi, and if there's any other Sousa Mendez grandchildren here, first of all, I'd like to say that I would. It's such an honor to have you on with us today, and you know that I have such all of the visa recipients on the call tonight have just so much gratitude and love for all of you, and
Thank you.
thank you.
Leah, at a time when we need hope, your grandfather provides us with a beacon of hope. It is just it is heartwarming and heartbreaking to hear his story. But thank you so much for sharing it, Leah. That was an amazing presentation.
Thank you.
That's all I'll say. I'll let you go back to what you were saying, but I wanted to bow to you and to Mr. Sousa Mendez. What an unbelievable man.
Thank you. Thank you. I can only tell this story because of these gifts that I was given of being able to be here and to have the Call Me Stefan story be present in New York State, in Portugal, and now around the country for whoever wants to hear it. So, Monique, your family received your visas on what date?
June 20th, 1940.
Okay.
Yes.
Gaia, your visa date was, are you there? Okay, while we're waiting for Gaia to come on, Sheila, can you tell us a few minutes about how your family tell us a little bit about your father and the rehabilitation of the name?
Sure. So my father was number 13 out of 14 from my grandmother, and then my grandfather had a second marriage and had that 15th child that Leah had mentioned. And so he was one that had to immigrate, and I do say had to. He didn't have a choice. He needed to leave. And so he ended up in California. And just to keep it short, because of time, once we were also 4 children, but once we were all grown, he and my mother devoted their time, energy, and resources to rehabilitating his name. They had connections in California, and it was enough time had passed where everything just lined up well. And so he was able to get that done with a simple petition from his local church to get that started. Yeah.
Joan is on the call too. Joan presented earlier. Joan, what was your visa date?
I don't know.
Oh, you don't know your parents' visa date? Okay.
No, I don't have any documentation. All I know is that they spent 18 months in Figueira da Foz, waiting to come to America.
So Sheila, thank you. Sheila, is there anything that you'd like to add about the visa recipient sharing the story, or anything you'd like to share, please?
No, I just love hearing the stories because, growing up, we always heard our side of the story. And it's just so impactful. And I have never seen your story, Leah. I know your story, but to see it is quite moving. So thank you, because I know it's not easy to share it. But I do hope it inspires everybody to do what they can, because on any given day, you can be somebody's hero. My grandfather did not wake up being a hero. He practiced. He was very devout, and he just practiced and practiced. They would say the rosary every night together as a family. And so when this came, it took everything. It took all his courage, my grandmother's courage, and they lost everything. But that's okay. He was fine with that. He was happy. He said he did it with love and he would do it again. There was no regrets. No regrets.
Sheila, I'd like to jump in for a minute if I may, because I couldn't find the mute button. Can you hear me, Leah? Leah?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, congratulations, Leah. This is fabulous. You did a brilliant job. I'm surprised you're not exhausted. I'm not saying you're not, but I'm surprised you're not acting so exhausted. And I want to say, Sheila, I love the fact that our grandparents met, because your grandfather gave my grandfather his visa, and it was the 18th of May. The 18th of May, 1940, and they went on to lose them. So that's what their story is. But I'm just it's so glad to be part of this family. And Leah, you are just absolutely amazing. Joan, it was nice to hear your voice. And that's all I have to say.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
But could I ask whether a recording of this is available?
Yes, this has been recorded, and you are able to, if you contact Millie Jasper, who is on the Zoom now, and she's the one who hosted, you could contact her at the HHRECNY.org. HHRECNY.org. And you'll get in touch with her and she'll get you the recording.
So Kathy, I want to REC, put it into the chat box. Someone will
It's already in
definitely make sure you get it. I saw that there were definitely a few questions, so people who have to drop off, it's fine. I want to make sure that I do get to a few of them.
Yes, I'd like to. Okay.
Yeah, they were helped by the Bolivian diplomat. Remember, my grandfather was stuck in Belgium, and he heard that Bolivian diplomat who was stationed in Hamburg, Germany, was issuing transit visas. That part we don't know. But they were first issued to him in November of 1939, but that's when my father got the appendicitis, and they weren't able to travel. They had to be reissued by Bilbao in January of 1940. There was another.
Are there any other questions? You can raise your hand or.
Yeah. There was somebody, Mrs. Cole. Yes, my grandparents, the day they got back, they reached out to Mrs. Cole and they immediately started paying people back. They paid the money that they received from Highest back, like immediately, everyone. Mrs. Cole's granddaughters became a detective. She became a novelist of detective stories. So, trying to see any other questions that you can see.
I have a question, Leah.
Yes.
What did your grandfather do in America?
Oh, I'm sorry. It was in my script, but I was so nervous that I just said, "Bah." Okay. My grandfather, when he came to America, started a subtitling and dubbing movie company called Tetra Film Laboratories. So I think if my father heard how I came in and out with that music, with those disappearing pictures, he probably would not be so happy. But yeah, it was called Tetra Films, and there was a dubbing and subtitling both here in New York and down in Brazil.
Okay. Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Lord, okay. I'm very interested in your caption about a New York school curriculum that includes Holocaust education, and I guess specifically your story, because right now where we know what the atmosphere is, and I feel that educating the children about the Holocaust in a structured, organized, and a way that children can access is truly, truly important. And how I live in White Plains, so how would the White Plains School District how do you approach them with your curriculum?
Millie, do you want to answer that?
Yes, the Holocaust and Human Rights Education Center is involved with almost every single public and private school in Westchester County and neighboring counties as well. And they know about this. This is a state mandated curriculum. Governor Hochul gave a lot of money, appropriated a lot of money for this curriculum. And so actually, the Holocaust and Human Rights Education Center late in about 3 weeks is offering a program to all the teachers to attend, and we're going to have a large group going. But anyway, the administration and the teachers all know about this.
Okay, good.
There's also a website that you can go to, everyone, if you want to just check it out. The Holocaust and Human Rights Education Center under Steve Goldberg has created a website known as consideredthesource.org. And you will be so impressed by what our schools are going to be able to follow. Also,
Could you repeat that again?
Yes, it's in the chat. I'll do one more time. Consider the source.org.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's really cool. You'll get all this if you look at the chat or go on the HHREC website, and you'll be able to glean a lot of knowledge there. And as Leah said, they do talk about the Susan Mendez story. And that's very cool. And I think there's a teacher here too, right? That may be helping along the way. But I see Eric Katz. You have your hand up. Yay.
Yes. I'm wondering if Leah, you could share a little bit about how you learned your father's story, and also and when you initially learned about his escape, and also whether maybe Sheila could tell us what she knew about her father's role in helping so many people, and how she learned about it.
Oh, thank you, Eric. So every year at Passover, my father would tell the story of his exodus out of Poland. But for until about 15 years ago, it did not include the Susan Mendez portion because he had no idea of that part of his history. So it wasn't until that phone call from out of the blue when poof, he had that. Then my parents came over with those boxes of materials, and that's how I learned the deeper story and my library research skills. I found out about the grandparents and their fate, and anyway, and I'll let Sheila talk about her family.
Yeah, we grew up knowing about the story. I joke with people. I started hearing about it when I was in the womb. My father wasn't shy about his family stories, but he had many stories, and I feel it didn't really hit me until I was an adult, and I started meeting Holocaust survivors, and then started meeting visa recipients and children of visa recipients, my level, I remember the first time Svi Deutsch, he's a visa recipient. I met his son, and I was just dumbstruck because I was already in my 30s and thinking, oh my God, he is me on the other side of the coin, And then I found out later on his family was part of a story my father would tell about a crossing in Spain where they had no phone, and my grandfather had to personally escort a group of refugees. I had heard that story my whole life, but then I was at one of his talks, and all of a sudden I hear him telling the story, and I was just dumbstruck. I was like, what? Like, not that I didn't believe my father, of course not, but when it becomes real, it has a different meaning when you actually meet folks. Yep.
Sheila, I think unfortunately this is such an interesting story and so many comments, and we'd love to go on and on, but I think we have to just for time's sake, we've run over. This has gone over like 20 minutes. So Millie kindly put Leah's email address in the chat. If you believe me, you can get in touch with anybody here. First, thank you, Sheila. Wow.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah.
You are, where, I don't know where Sheila just went. I was just looking.
She's there. I'm going to find her again.
Here.
I put it up there. Sheila's there. There it is, my address. So there you go.
Oh,
okay.
I see.
Yep.
Okay. Sheila, wherever you are now on the screen, I just want to, God bless you and your family. And you really have an amazing history. And your father's story should be told, just like Leah is doing over and over and over again, that we're all really essentially the same if you have a kind heart. And if you don't, you don't. And thank you. And Leah put up on the screen at the very end something from Pirkei Avot, which is from the Bible, which says that if you save one life, you have saved a whole world. But your grandfather and your family saved generations.
A universe.
Yes, Joan, thank you. Leah, thank you so much for your effort and your enthusiasm and your willingness.
Thank you.
I can't forget to thank my teammates here, Sam Rosemarin and Millie Jasper, who every month put on these programs. Please join us once a month to hear these wonderful stories. Millie and Sam are dedicated like no other to promote these Holocaust remembrances. And mostly thank you all to all of you who are here tonight. You are all witnesses now to Stefan's story, to Stephen and to Stefan, and to Leah's story. So in honor of Leah's story and Stefan and Abraham Rosenfeld, we'd like you to consider, if it's in your heart to do, to leave a donation of Chai, 18 Chai, or denominations of Chai or more to the HHREC so we could keep on bringing you these stories. And we really do appreciate that a lot. Millie has also put that in the chat, HHRECNY.org. Everyone have a great rest of your week. Remember Stefan, remember Susa Mendez, do what you can. When you save one life, you save a whole world. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you so much.
Night. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bravo,
Thank you.
Leah.
Thank you.
Bravo, Leah.
Yes.
Hi, everyone. No, Leah, it's too soon.
People are not in?
Thank you, Leah.
Okay.